So you're a Roman citizen at the peak of your empire. Homelessness is rare, housing is cheap, and you can travel freely from Scotland's edge to Iran's doorstep. No passports needed. Ancient Rome was the New York City of its time, yet it fell apart anyway. Could you imagine that? You're standing in modern day Times Square and then poof, on fire, just like the famous Thomas Cole painting. Rome fell apart for several reasons, one of them being the total economic mismanagement of the state. But today we want to talk about 5 countries that are teetering on the same fate as Rome. It's no secret that this year 63 protest movements erupted across the world, many of them in first world countries like Great Britain or outside Columbia University in New York City. It's hard not to see why. Politicians have been reduced to helpless goons in the hands of decades of rampant lobbying and insider trading, all the while inflation is doing away with the middle class. And in the Western world, we're divided on issues like abortion, guns, wars, LGBT, feminism, class war, and race, just to name a few things. So to judge each of these collapses, we'll use metrics like the Fragile State Index, which measures how weak a country's central government is. We'll also look at how much corruption is reported from the state and the observable instability within. While these countries could be more or less prosperous, each is in the winter season of their civilization. You could be a third or first world country and end up the same. As investors, it's important to keep an eye on macroeconomic trends around the world, especially since 3 of these countries are in the Western Hemisphere. And with less than a few weeks until the US presidential election, global stability feels like a pinprick away from an explosion. All these countries have financial issues, but corruption is their real downfall. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm Isaiah McCall of 99 Bitcoins, and here are 5 nations on the brink of collapse. Before we do that, a word from our sponsor. This video is sponsored by MemeBet Token. MemeBet Token allows you to take coins like Dogecoin and Pepe and bet them in a casino-like environment. It's a great way to spice up trading with coins that are already pretty volatile and pack your bags a little bit more. Check out MemeBet Token in the description below. Now, back to the video. Haiti.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
We're going to avoid the which group ate whose cat story, but if you look at Haiti, it is a tale of 2 nations. That's Haiti on the left and Dominican Republic on the right. Haiti is also a top 10 candidate in the Fragile State Index, only 2 spots below Afghanistan. So ask yourself, what the hell went wrong? I remember when I went to an open mic in Brooklyn years ago, a Haitian guy took the stage and started yelling, "Take your mask off, you are not a slave." It was during COVID at the time. It was a pretty catchy song, but he also said that Haiti is not the real name of his country, that the real name is IET. When I asked him about this later, he said, think about it. The name Westerners gave Haiti is rooted in hate. Hate IET, Haiti's original name, instead means flower of highland. Whether you think he has a point or not, Haiti has been royally screwed by both America and France during the 19th and 20th century. In 1804, Haiti won a war of independence against France and abolished slavery. But in the aftermath, no colonial powers ever dealt with Haiti fairly because none of them wanted to give legitimacy to an independent black country in the Americas. And bitter from their loss and not feeling like spending more resources, France imposed a huge debt on Haiti for their independence. Imagine having to pay reparations for your independence. That's what Haiti's had to do, paying reparations to France until 1947. One other consequence of the revolution was that Haiti was forced to pay reparations in the form of timber. This continued a trend of wide deforestation on the Haitian side of the island of Hispaniola and caused what political scientists say is the start of Haiti turning into a vast desert.
Duvalier and his successor, aka his son Jean-Claude, ate up aid from the United States in exchange for their strong anti-communist stand at the height of the Cold War. Haitian uprisings ended Duvalier Jr.'s rule and led to Haiti choosing its democratically elected leader, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, in 1990. But within a year, Aristide's government was toppled by a coup. Not only was one of the leaders of the coup on the CIA's payroll, but the US had set up and funded the Haitian military and National Intelligence Service, which both played key roles in the coup. Ousted Aristide returned to his second presidency in 2001, and again was forced out of office by a coup that he claimed the US had orchestrated.
This isn't even getting into what the US has done to Haiti. Haiti has a government in name only. It doesn't even control its own capital, Port-au-Prince. That's actually controlled by gangs. Not to mention that Haiti just had a president assassinated, Jovenel Moise, by foreign mercenaries a couple years ago, and there have not been any criminal charges. The debt to France certainly got in the way of Haitian development from the country's beginnings. But every time Haiti Haiti wanted to better itself under leaders like Jean-Bertrand Astride, the US stepped in to quash that dream. That leads us to our next country on the brink of collapse, the United States of America. I recently did an AI prompt of what AI thinks of Republicans versus liberal protesters. We'd say it's pretty accurate. While we're a far cry from Haiti, a 2014 Princeton study titled Testing Theories of American Politics, Elite Interest Groups and Average Citizens found the opinions of 90% of Americans have essentially no impact on creating laws. Quote, the preference of the average American appear to have only a minuscule, near zero, statistically non-significant impact upon public policy. The founding fathers adamantly warned against the creation of one institution that could ultimately destroy Western democracy, the Uniparty. And clearly, the apathy felt by American voters is coming to a head, so much so that we're making global blockbusters about a coming civil war.
We're American, okay? Okay. What kind of American are you? Central American, South American?
Let me touch two parts of that. The first part is it by default having only two parties? Maybe. But the issue is once they own the system and the system is no longer the referee, the system is now them, right? If the system is a referee, two parties is okay. But it isn't, there's no referee. The two parties are the system, which creates the uniparty, right? That's the problem.
This is Larry Sharp, by the way. We met at this year's Bitcoin conference in Nashville. Larry has run for governor of New York and again in 2024, and has even been on the JRE podcast. He's one of the foremost politicians calling out the uniparty. What he sees as one of the reasons to America's downfall. One of the things Larry enlightened me about is how hard it is to be a third-party candidate, not just to win in this country, but to even get on the ballot. Spoilers, we do not have a democracy.
Right, where I live in New York, my city, state, and federal representative are all Democrats. The Republican Party hasn't even run a candidate in 10 years. Yes, so what that means is the primary is the election. Now, we don't have open primaries. I'm not a Democrat. I literally, and I'll be very clear, literally have no say in my government. I don't have a democracy. So I don't care we're gonna lose a democracy. I don't have one now. This is no hyperbole. I have no say in my government where I live, and I'm an American. None. I am not allowed to vote in the election that will decide city, state, federal, and New York State does not have ballot initiatives for citizens. So I can't even put something on the ballot. All I can do is hope I have a good king and queen. A third party becomes a referee. So now to your point, how bad is it? Well, Larry, run. For Bobby Kennedy Jr., he dropped about $20 million to get on the ballot in every state. What person has $20 million to do that? That $20 million does not pay for one staff member, does not pay for one ad.
People say America's declining, but by what metric? How can you tell a country is in decline? It's not like America is anywhere near the Fragile State Index, yet there is other data to prove it. For instance, IQ is dropping by 7 points every generation. There's also the economy, which is overinflated and propped up by a fractional reserve fiat banking system that most Americans aren't even aware of. Not to mention, 50% of Americans are obese, and that number is increasing. Let's focus on the money part. This is a crypto channel after all. We have a debt-based monetary system that plays a major part in the decline of America. It's why Saudi Arabia doesn't trust us, like we covered in our video a few months back. Check it out here. Most people don't understand this concept we're about to introduce, but the people who run the Federal Reserve Bank do. No debt, no money. In plain English, that means America and Americans need to spend more money than we have and go into debt in order to create money. Look at your money. It says for debts, private and public, all money is debt, and it's lent out from the Federal Reserve, and herein lies the problem. The Federal Reserve is controlled by a cartel of banks, including JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and the Rockefellers. If you want evidence of this, look at the case of Smedley Butler, a two-time Medal of Honor recipient and a Major General in the US Marine Corps. In the early 1930s, Butler was approached by a group of wealthy industrialists and bankers, including the DuPonts, the Rockefellers, and JP Morgan. They asked him to lead a coup against President Franklin Roosevelt with the help of 500,000 war veterans. Butler went to Congress and testified about the plot. If you don't believe me, read his testimony for yourself. Do you understand what we just said? Less than 100 years ago, the banks tried to overthrow a president. What the hell do you think they're trying to do now? Yeah, talk about a red pill.
Let's get this to the government. This looks pretty good, actually.
What? That's dangerous! Chauncey, what are you doing? That's dangerous!
So what does this mean for US democracy?
We've had 25 direct years of decay.
Is democracy doomed to fail?
I don't know of any better government. No government is going to work well. It's always going to fall into something bad, right? The socialists will always say, socialism is always the answer to capitalism, right? Eventually they'll go to socialism. Yes, but tyranny is always the answer to socialism. Even if that's true, things always seem to go go bad currently is a very small government that focuses on one thing, and that is defending the rights of the individual against the local bullies. They rule themselves, the mob, so no accountability. What could go wrong? My goal now has to make sure that people don't figure this out. People stay asleep, I win. People who will fight, I'm not gonna vote, I'll show them. They're like, yay!
South Africa. South Africa is corruption hell. Experts have been saying for the past 20 years that post-apartheid South Africa is doomed to fail by the 2030s if nothing changes. One of the reasons for that is South Africa has the highest levels of inequality in the world. A staggering 85% of the country's wealth is possessed by the richest 10%.
We introduced marketized education in 1994 on the policy advice from the World Bank. They are a bank, and they will always prioritize the repayment of our IMF loans over the public good. So what's marketized education? Well, it's when schools market themselves to attract fee-paying parents. And they do this by advertising that they have the best teachers, or they have amazing resources like libraries and art centers. The problem is that wealth ends up being pooled within these schools. Schools within low-income areas don't have the same financial resources from school fees. It's basic things like stationery and chalk and printing costs and electricity.
To add insult to injury, a discouraging 60% of South Africans are jobless. South Africa has also been suffering from a severe electricity shortage for decades. As a result, the government has resorted to implementing load shedding since 2008 to prevent the national grid from collapsing. Load shedding is when electricity is suddenly cut off in certain areas to reduce the strain on the national grid. Not to mention, political assassinations are on the rise in South Africa. As the tax base diminishes and the money flow evaporates, politicians are getting more cutthroat and desperate. With the looming specter of losing power in 2024-2029, the battle for political supremacy has become a savage frenzy in South Africa. Lebanon, positioned above Israel, went belly up in 2020, defaulting on its enormous $90 billion debt, totaling a staggering 170% of its GDP, a global record. By June 2021, with a currency depreciation of almost 90%, the World Bank said the crisis ranked as one of the worst the world has seen in more than 150 years. Additionally, Lebanon's consumer prices have endured a roller coaster of inflation in the past 12 years, ranging from a meager 3.7% to a staggering 154.8%. Lebanon has even lost 50% of its economy in the last 2 years. Such craziness has even driven desperate individuals to rob banks to access their own savings. If your country has been hurt by inflation, you might know that inflation isn't a killer as long as you don't have to worry about rent. Inflation mostly hurts people who have to pay for rent and buy food and other goods. You know, the middle class, the people who pay their taxes. Greece, Lebanon, Argentina, although these countries have had their own internal political problems, the US devaluing the US dollar has played a huge role in their economic suffering as well. All roads lead to Rome. That leads us to our last country on the brink of collapse, the EU. The USA will exist. It might be in a different form, but it will exist. It's pretty certain. The EU, on the other hand, might collapse. Germany, France, and Italy, the EU's economic heavyweights, are caught in a web of disagreement and internal divide. The EU is falling behind, and this is getting accelerated now that cheap energy from Russia is no longer available. Either the EU will reform or become very, very ineffective.
The other countries we were mentioning was the EU. What I see it now, and friends I know in Europe, they almost see it as America's a bad influence on Europe in terms of our policy. Do you have any opinions on, maybe when you were in Europe, or do you have any opinions on Europe now?
This is the problem. America's an empire, and we know we're an empire. And how do you know you're an empire? Because we're always fighting wars. When countries fight wars, they're devastated, right? Roman Empire, always at war. Mongol Empire, always at war. Chinese Empire, always at war. Every empire, always at war. British Empire, always at war. The big difference between us and the others is what made us special, the others didn't have, is every other time an empire fell, there was no one there to pick it up. When the British Empire fell, their son, America, was there to pick up the dad's business.
The United States is a powerhouse of economic diversity as well as outpacing the world in tech innovation. In contrast, Canada and Australia are rich with natural resources underpinning their economic strength. What does Europe have? Luxury cars? High fashion? What's killing Europe is they have no tech industry. China has its own tech and cloud computing hegemony, separate from the US, with companies like WeChat, TikTok, and BYD, which is eating Volkswagen's lunch. Precision engineering for cars, while something I still personally appreciate, is being replaced by EVs, which are also connected to the cloud, offering you services you could never have in a car before. It's why a Tesla makes most other cars feel like a Model T.
On the monopoly of the payment system of the dollar. What has happened in the last 10-15 years is that the Chinese are the only alternative locus in which cloud capital emerged. Europe has no cloud capital of its own. We don't have a Google, we don't have a Facebook, we don't have a Tesla, we don't have anything.
We have OnlyFans.
So what is Europe going to rely on going forward? After a decade and a half in economic limbo, most European countries have only just clawed their way back to pre-2008 GDP levels. Meanwhile, the US has been on a spree absorbing economies the size of the UK, France, Germany, Spain, and Italy combined. In 2008, per capita GDPs of the US, Canada, UK, France, Germany were all similar. Today, US's GDP per capita is almost double of France and Germany. You also can't ignore the migrant crisis happening in Europe as well. While it might feel good to say no country should have borders, most Europeans and Americans believe there should be a system for immigration. What all this boils down to is that both the EU and America need to reform. They need to reform before it's too late.
But where do you then see America 10, 15 years, maybe longer? I mean, is a collapse possible? And does Europe maybe play a role in that, in the sense of they're fed up with our shit?
We don't have a son. The Brits had a son, us. So we took over the business. When the empire fell, it was okay because he just retired and we took over. But the rest of them are on our dad. So that's why our special relationship is with Britain. The Chinese have a concept of constant reform. We have to follow that model. We have to reform. Will it be a peaceful reform revolution? Or will it be a violent revolution? People say, Larry, do you think you're going to save the world? Why do you keep running for office? To be forward, Isaiah, I do not believe I will save the world. I don't have that much hubris. I do not believe that. Do I believe that I can be one of the guys who sets it up to be saved? I do. I do believe in the great person theory. I believe there has to be a great person at the top of any movement. I think I'm the guy who builds it up for that guy to show up. I think that guy will show up. The question is, will we be able to do the job or not? I don't know.
Thanks for watching. While we realize a complete meltdown of any of these countries isn't imminent, 2025 looms as a year of profound transformation. Here's to hoping those are net positive changes for these countries. Stay safe out there. Hey guys, we're trying to bring a lot more long form, high quality videos like this to the channel. So if you like these, please comment down below, like and subscribe. Let us know so we can keep these going and so my boss doesn't fire me. And if you want to check out more of the long form, high quality content we're trying to do, be sure to check out videos here, there. They're probably going to pop up somewhere. So check those out. Have a good day.